So, well, this actually turns out this is the first 2020 video. The other one was uploaded on the 31st of December 2019. So, it's my bad, it's my mistake, I do apologise for that. Anyway, onto the video. Mr. O'Hare, a young, once prosperous young man turned dictator of the small village of Thneedville. Now you might be wondering, who is Mr. O'Hare? Mr. O'Hare was a young man when at the age of 22 had a low income job. Mr. O'Hare worked a low income job. I do not remember his job. In fact, he never really spoke to it about me that often. I was his private journalist. I would travel around the world to look at possible interests of Thneedville. Mr. O'Hare came to power when the Onceler had corrupted the small town of Thneedville. He made these things called Thneeds, I believe, and he chopped down all the trees. So the Lorax and his loyalists fled, and they went into exile. They became refugees. Mr. O'Hare came to power when he instead used air to produce air. He became known as the supreme leader, Mr. O'Hare, the greatness of all greatness, Mr. O'Hare of Thneedville. Mr. O'Hare blocked off all the exits and entrances into Thneedville, so no one could enter or leave. This was a good thing for Thneedville. No dirty, scummy trees coming into their land, taking their jobs. However, it was late in one of his terms of being the supreme leader, as he was just nicknamed. A young man named Ted founded the National Liberation Front of Thneedville, a rebel group. Ted's National Liberation Front of Thneedville was aimed to overthrow Mr. O'Hare and put in a democracy. At first, Ted never wanted trees. He was brainwashed by his future, much older girlfriend, Audrey. She brainwashed him into believing that trees were the way of life. Mr. O'Hare quelled the first uprising when Ted tried to escape. However, he failed. Ted would escape numerous times and meet up with the Onceler, an outside source with information, who regretted his decision on chopping down the trees for climate change. Eventually, Ted smuggled in a tree sapling and somehow got past the Thneedville security force. Ted took it to the headquarters of his new rebel group. This was his house. At his house, Grammy Norma and his mom, who is not named for security reasons, to protect her identity from the Thneedville government. These rebels kept the tree sapling, hid it, and kept it safe. And when Mr. O'Hare apparently assaulted Ted, he was kicked out of the house. On June 26, 2012, Ted and his rebel soldiers, 4 of them, entered the town centre of Thneedville, where he began a partition to let the tree grow. Mr. O'Hare turned up with his army and was ready for battle. Ted refused to surrender and give up the sapling. The delivery guy was ordered by Mr. O'Hare to help quell the uprising. However, the delivery guy had other plans and betrayed Mr. O'Hare. After a bit of singing, the uprising actually began. The people of Thneedville decided that they would side with Ted, and an uprising began. Harsh conflict began in the city centre, fighting street to street. The loyalist army to Mr. O'Hare was outnumbered, they were outgunned, they were betrayed, but they did have one thing. They had belief. Belief in their supreme leader, that Mr. O'Hare would lead them to victory. And victory wasn't now. After 14 days of battling, the rebel forces eventually got into the city council. Mr. O'Hare fled. He fled to the city park. Ted was in pursuit, and there Mr. O'Hare was surrounded, and the rebels began to sing. The infamous song of Let It Grow began singing around Mr. O'Hare. Now I remember being there in the car park and just looking down and writing notes. I wanted to help my friend Mr. O'Hare, but I couldn't. There was nothing I could do. I was not military trained. He only had 2 soldiers left, 2 of his most loyalist and best, most well-trained guards. The Thneedville National Guard was his last hope. Mr. O'Hare tried a last-ditch attempt. He attempted to side with the rebels. He pretended that he agreed with them. This didn't work out. Mr. O'Hare's National Guard turned on him, and a coup began. Eventually, a jetpack was put on Mr. O'Hare, and he was sent to exile. Mr. O'Hare was exiled to Ardenelle, where Queen Elsa and Princess Anna took him in on a political status of exile. Over the years, Mr. O'Hare would receive a numerous amount of support. Mr. O'Hare would receive most support other than Ardenelle. He would receive most support from the Kingdom of Corona by Rapunzel and Flynn Rider. They offered military assistance to help him take back Thneedville from the democratic, free election, capitalist scum, Ted. I am still currently in contact with Mr. O'Hare, and trust me, we do plan to take back Thneedville from Ted and Audrey and their brutal regime, which Grammy Norma is the general of. But this was the end of an era. Mr. O'Hare, beloved leader of Thneedville, was overthrown and sent into exile. Currently, there is an army being created by Mr. O'Hare. It's called the Mr. O'Hare Loyalist Army of Thneedville. They aim to take down the Democratic Republic of Thneedville and its capitalist allies far, far away. But for now, the people of Thneedville suffer every day. Free speech, free elections. The people need a hero. If you vote for Mr. O'Hare, if you support Mr. O'Hare and travel to Ardenelle, you will be doing him and Thneedville a huge favour. Please bring back Mr. O'Hare. Also, the Pride Lands with King Simba and Queen Nala have also just recently offered support to Mr. O'Hare's struggle and cause. Thank you for listening. Signing out. Good luck, Mr. O'Hare, and may God be with you.